Hey everyone, Tactics here with my advanced encrypted routing guide for Miss of Tirna Scithe. I have a bunch of similar videos over on my channel as well, so if this is a video you find useful, you think is good, make sure you guys go check those out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, of course, and turn on notifications so you don't miss all the other videos like this. Of course, I'll be doing this for all the Season 3 dungeons with encrypted and all the Season 4 dungeons with whatever new affix comes with that season, so keep an eye out for all of those. If you're unfamiliar with what this is going to cover, basically I'm going to go through the MDT link here, kind of discuss the different pulls we do, how we do them, maybe how you could potentially change them if your group comp is a little bit different than ours, how we do like defensive CD management, offensive CD management, which is pretty important for the first boss here. And then, of course, I'll walk you guys through one of my higher key runs of this dungeon as well, and kind of talk through pull by pull as it actually happens. So let's start off here with the first pull. We do still skip. So there's two main first pulls you kind of see in this dungeon, and that's like a big pull off the top here with like a bunch of these little guys in the tree, or this pull that you see that we do here, which is double bow breaker into this 4-pack into the mushroom rune. And what you can do here is I put the note in, use the mushrooms to full heal if needed. So when you eat any of the mushrooms, you heal back to full. In the video that I'm going to show you guys, we don't really use the HP mushrooms very much because there's, of course, the two types. There's the damage mushrooms and the HP mushrooms. On a higher fortified key, potentially you would use those HP mushrooms to give yourself some more leeway. But on a tyrannical key, it's not super necessary until you get much higher. First boss, this is where CD management is going to be important. I'll talk you guys through that when we actually get into the video. So let's move on here. And there's a ton of wall pulls we end up. So that's one of the big modifications to the Mist route, is just we are chain pulling through walls. So previously that was done with like Shadowgrass Totem and stuff like that. Now it's done with pet classes and the Codex of the First Technique Tank Trinket to pull things through walls. And so like this is a wall pull, got a wall pull here. Wall pull here through onto the boss, that kind of thing. So lots of wall pulls, and that's how you're going to get the majority of your percent in this dungeon. It's just pulling through the walls. Fun. Because the maze is still variable, you're going to end up somewhere between like 65 and 75% count. And so it is going to adjust what you end up pulling later in the dungeon, depending on how much maze count you got. So like this is kind of the optional pull. If you got a really bad maze, you pull this. If you have a good maze or an average maze even, you don't need to pull this. Big pull here, pull here. Normally you do this because like oftentimes you'd want to pull this onto boss, but you kind of want to lust this last boss, and it usually won't be up until later on. So we just kind of tend to pull these trash packs together and call it a day and just pull the boss and lust whenever we get Bloodlust. So now let's look at the actual video here. We're already partway through the video. There we go. All right, so again, skip off the top. We use Shroud because we have it, obviously, but you could Invispot this with speed as well, be just fine. And, you know, normal skip, people have seen the skip before, going all the way, sapping this, and we're going to see the rogue go and misdirect me and go and get these bow breakers while we open up this door. And the key here is to make sure that this pack gets brought on top of each other very quickly. So you see, I'm going to position myself over here. Bring the bow breakers down. And the key is just getting those kicks. So this insta-grouped, and now we're together. And now I'll just move with the bow breakers. And what we do here is we're going to actually push both bow breakers at the same time and use the Spirit Link plus Guardian Druid to basically heal the party through the double bow breakers. So you're going to see here in a second here, we want to push them even, and we push them at the same time. We're all stacked up now. Spirit Link's going to go down. Full health bear basically keeps everyone alive. So that's how we handle this pack. And then we move into the first boss. And this is by far the hardest part of the dungeon. It's make or break. It's just one of those keys where you walk in here, do the first pull, whatever. You do the first boss, and you either kill it or you wipe. And then you either walk out of the key or you time the dungeon. So that's kind of this boss. So you're going to see here, we actually hard scuff this boss, by the way. This boss is completely scuffed. Do not do what we are about to do, okay? But let's talk through the wrong thing to do. So the number one wrong thing to do is to kill Vi. That was actually, I don't know how Vi, you can see me here. I'm literally targeting the Relic, trying to kill the Relic, and somehow Vi dies. This is bad. Vi does a lot of random damage, Adding the beam dodge, etc. Very bad. I think we actually end up having a death, and like we almost all die repeatedly. Don't kill Vi. Is definitely the play here. And when it comes to timing, actually, so basically what you would want to do is you'd want to kill it near the end of the phase when you have that high damage intake. You want to kind of hold it as long as you can. If you can hold it and survive all the way to the intermission, obviously you get extra damage with It's not totally necessary though, and you're probably better off using as a survivability thing later in the boss phase. But the main thing here is making sure you have a kick rotation on Ingra. You see here, I tend to hold my kick for this spot and move him as little as possible, right on the edge of these blue swirlies. Vi causing havoc. Let's ignore Vi. Let's pretend Vi is not there. And we just move as little as possible. So what you can do as well is like melee can kind of stay together when those swirlies are coming out. And you see they'll cluster pretty heavily on the melee players. And you just delay your movement as much as possible to give yourself the most possible room. So our positioning here is going to be a bit weird because of this Vi. It's definitely throwing a bit of a wrench in things, but it's fine. Our lust timing is kind of, it's going to be later into this phase here, and it's going to be to kind of finish that push for the tree through into the burn phase. So we have a lust and through the entire burn phase, and to give us some extra tree damage in the phase afterwards. So that's when our lust timing is going to come. It's going to come, I think, high 20% on the tree. It's kind of when it comes after a move at some point, so it should be coming relatively soon here. Vi dies as well. Not bad timing, I think, for the burn, actually. I think we actually have Vi buff for the burn, so could be worse. But yeah, definitely don't do that. You can see as we are almost all dying here. And now we're pushing, and we're doing our burn here, so we're going to have Lust for this entire burn. For CD usage, we use it on pull there, and then would actually help you kind of maintain it and use certain cooldowns that you otherwise wouldn't be able to use there, because that was like about a 1.5 minute push, and so like certain 2 minutes would actually be back or about to be back if you wanted them to be, if you got on pull. So keep that in mind with your group. For us, we're basically a bunch of 1 minutes, and like our 2 minutes aren't up for pull, so they're not a big deal. We just get them up and then hold them for the actual burn here. And I think also we scuffed this, so the death I think ends up meaning that we have to 3-phase, sorry. So just keep that in mind. 3-phasing this boss is actually still timeable on Tyrannical if you have to 3-phase it, but we should have 2-phased it. Like if we had done this correctly, it would have been a 2-phase boss. But at this point, all damage is being sent into the tree. So after that first phase where we kind of get a little bit more boss damage, we're a little bit more greedy in that first phase, all damage gets sent into the tree, and we kind of go on CD on that tree just to push this phase as fast as possible and not get into a similar situation, right? That first phase, near the end of it, is where you want to be committing defensives. Again, that's where you want to be killing an maybe, if you want to use that for healing, that kind of thing, because that's the scariest part of the fight for sure. You see it's starting to ramp up again here. It's getting a little bit scarier, and we're close to killing the tree again, luckily. And that's this boss. Like, this is the make or break fight in this dungeon. If you wipe to this boss, you know, you just walk out. That's pretty much it. And then you move forward, and you get a lot of easy trash here. So let's skip the rest of the boss again. We do 3-phase this boss because I think, yeah, that's also another thing that happened. I think we had a potted DPS for the second burn. So it was just a very chaotic first boss, but we somehow still managed to kill. Kind of surprised, honestly. But yeah, so it can go giga scuffed. Perfectly fine for things to go scuffed. You don't need to be perfect. Like I said, we should have 2-phased that boss. Most groups, I'm guessing, even up to like 26, 27, are probably 2-phasing that boss. So you should be aiming to 2-phase it for the most part. But if it doesn't work out, 3-phasing is still possible to time the key. So keep that in mind. Here, so now we do the wall pull. So like I mentioned, for the most part, we're going to do pet pulls. Just because Codex requires it to proc, and then you do target it. If you guys remember the Streets video where I just accidentally pull a pack because I had first technique up and I targeted something, that's how that works. So if something is hitting you and you have the first technique proc and you target something through the wall, you can pull it. So like right now, I would be able to target it through the wall because I had the first technique proc here. Otherwise though, we actually get a relatively bad maze. So this is a below average maze. We're like sub 70% post this maze. So that means we would ideally want to pull a 3-pack at the end, but we'll talk about that at the end. So we're just going to go through the maze here. The main thing, I think we end up going right here. That's the one thing that makes this maze really bad. We end up going right. Yeah. We end up going right through that wall, pulling this pack. Boring. There's something on top of this, but I believe once we go through to the matriarch here, yeah, so this is another one where matriarch has 2 packs you could pull onto the matriarch. So it's that pack we just killed. If you came from a different direction, you could pull this pack, or it's this pack up here. So no matter what direction you come from, you can always pull a pack on top of this matriarch. So there's one. Oh, it'll come in a second here. Yeah, pet class. And as a tank, just be prepared, right? I usually have incarn for these bigger pulls because I know they're going to happen eventually, right? With the number of wall pulls you can do with a pet class, there's just so many. So whenever you're not doing a wall pull, do not commit like big CDs like incarn, for example. Moving forward after this matriarch, I think we do back-to-back double pulls here, actually. Yeah, so we get into this room that doesn't have a wall separating them, so we just drag them together. Kill them. And I believe this is the end of our maze. So very short maze. Did a bunch of big pulls in the maze, despite them not actually existing. But kind of bad. So what we end up doing here, and what we end up always doing, is pulling both these packs through the walls. This doesn't need a pet class. This just needs a 40-yard range ability. You see how I'm going to walk up here, going to moonfire it, and it's pulled. And you can pull either one of these packs on top of the boss. I kind of prefer pulling this pack on top of the boss, to be honest with you. This, of course, has the Stinger. It has a Stalker. It has 2 of these Guardian ads. I don't like really pulling this onto the boss. We still have 50 seconds on Lust anyways. Normally, you'd want to like drag one of these on the boss, Bloodlust, and go from there. So do this pack, and you'll see we'll do a pet pull. I think Bursting was trolling the pet here, something like that. I don't remember. Yeah, I think it was something weird, like bursting or something would like cause the pet to run back. As you can see here, he's trying to like run away, but it would like run back as soon as the bursting happened. Weird. But yeah, basically we'll pull this onto the boss now. We have Bloodlust. Just grab it and go on to boss. The big thing here is to make sure your tank isn't assigned to kick. I think I accidentally kicked something here, but luckily, Legacy of the Sleeper makes you immune to CC, so Pat a Cake is fine. Yeah, this is that you just boss, Lust, mass AoE. Really straightforward. This stuff dies relatively quickly. You do want to make sure you get to stop on that, but it will die pretty quickly. And I think we even like this Vulpin just dies. Like the Vulpin just dies in the mass AoE. So it's pretty easy to execute pull there, especially with Bloodlust. So that's what we do. And again, here's the look. So we're at 67%, just under 68%. And that's pretty bad. So ideally you want to be over 70.5. That's your kind of ballpark goal of over 70.5%, and that lets you do another skip. So we end up doing the skip anyways, but we probably shouldn't have. So let's just go past the boss. There's nothing really about this boss. Do damage to the clones really, because this is the only part you can wipe in. Kill the clones fast. That's his boss. There is that kind of I guess there's a skip. I haven't been able to reliably do it. Some people are saying, oh, you can LOS. Oh, it's based on, I mean, it's just kind of based on like how late you kick when you're near the threshold. So it's going to depend on like stop damage timing and that kind of thing. So maybe I'll do like a specific video talking about that if I can find a way to like consistently do it. But for now, not so sure about that. Moving past this boss takes forever. Okay, so at this point, we probably should have done this 3-pack and either rolled a Vi into the big pull or a Woe into the big pull. Either would have worked. Instead, we just skip it, which means we have to pull an extra pack later, which is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. But again, definitely would recommend if you're below 70.5, pull this 3-pack and roll a Vi or a Woe into this big pull. Either or, whatever your choice is. But then we move straight into this big pull with all CDs up, waiting for everyone. We have the Rogue here, CCing the Flyers. You never want to pull the Flyers. They're super annoying. And we just have 2 kicks assigned to each Staghorn. That's all you really need. And we just run all the way through here is important because it makes it much easier to dodge all these green swirlies. If you try and pull it into this middle island, which we've done once, swirlies go everywhere. Not a good look. Very hard to dodge. You're better off running all the way through. Range have some room to dodge back here. Melee have a bunch of room to dodge here. Overall good. Do we have a burst go off? We do. Oh yeah, we're not supposed to kill Woe here. That's the problem. So killing Woe here, bad, by the way. Don't do that. That's not ideal because, again, like I mentioned, you have 2 kicks assigned to each Staghorn. So little rough. And also, like I said, you had Lust, you could pull this into boss. Obviously, we're still 4 minutes off of Lust, so I think we just kind of get this low, and I just dip out to the next pack, and we just keep chain pulling. Yeah. And we just keep chain pulling. And you see here, like, once we finish this pack, we're going to be like 3% off. Yeah, so we're like 3% off. So we have to pull another pack, and this one obviously just doesn't have relics. So you're better off if you're sub 70%, I think, pulling that first 3 pack instead of skipping it, because you get a relic benefit then. And something like Vi can help you out with that big pull. Even a Woe can help you out with that big pull, like I was saying. And then you're just moving on to the last boss here, and we just kind of Lust whenever we get Lust. Main thing here is that we have one person in charge of kicking the intermission, and then everyone else just kicks the infestor ads, because you only need 1 committed. So the big thing here, I mean, is really just trying to move as little as possible for these swirlies. The less you move, the less they're going to move when they spawn more. And so that's kind of the goal here. We're not doing the kind of stack and move together strat. We probably could be, but it's much less relevant without Oros buff, right? Because that is very prominent when Oros was a thing on this last boss, because it made those easier to dodge, though of course it was a little bit more dangerous, because if you ever misstepped, you would just insta get 1 shot. Well, that's probably still a thing on like a 28 Tyrannical. On the lower Tyrannicals is less of a big deal, and it's much easier to break the mind links instantly if you're not fully stacked, right? So it's kind of a trade-off in that sense. What you can do, of course, is you can see who the mind link target is. Tradova chooses the target, then does the cast bar, so that player can just run out preemptively and instantly break mind links, so just keep that in mind. Otherwise, we're just kind of AoE CCing these larvas, cleaving them down. Again, we have kicks assigned to all this stuff. And there's not really much else to this boss. It doesn't hit anywhere near as hard anymore because, again, you're not skipping Sagadon, you're not skipping Oros. This boss got a lot easier in this season. So honestly, a lot of last bosses got a lot easier now. Really happy you don't have to do these bosses with insane slows and giga physical damage taken increase. So fine by me. But yeah, there we have it, guys. Mists of Tirna Scithe. Again, like I mentioned, it's a little bit different than previous dungeons because you have that maze, and it is still a little bit random, so there is some variable. You do have to think a little bit for yourself on the fly. Like I mentioned, I laid out a couple options for you. If you're below 70%, you can do one thing. If you're over 70%, you can do the other. I have those notes in the MDT as well, and I'll link the Wago link for the route down below for you guys if you want to use it. But again, that maze is random up to a degree, right? So you have your wall pulls, but you can't control the exact direction the maze is moving. If you have any questions, though, about this route, any other routes, drop it down below in the comments, or stop by my Twitch channel at Tactics, where I do all my streams for this kind of stuff, mythic tanking, in raid, high keys, all that stuff. Feel free to drop by, say hi, ask a question, I'll do my best to answer. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.